we're on the wrong side. It's just it's a weird thing. I'm just trying to process this all and figure it out. And I think everybody across the world is doing that. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that there has to be a major backlash. Just the amount of anger when people start to realize that we've been manipulated and we've been used and we've been robbed, and it's for the most nefarious reasons. It's not like we were giving money because we thought that we would get better health care or something like this. It's to fund a war, to kill, to rob other people in other countries, to commit a genocide. It's just so sick. The whole thing is so sick. And then this whole thing has to fall down. It is falling down, but it's just, I just can't help but think about what, like the history of the United States, like how we were so revered and how we thought we were so great. And look how
we really were revered, and people really did look up to us. Like when I was young, it was really true. Back in the 60s.
When I remember when I was in elementary school, middle school, having those feelings. Everything started to change after 9/11, but I mean, just the most ignoble death of a country. I'm just so ashamed as an American. I'm so disgusted as an American, and we need to reclaim our country back. And it's going to get weird, Dad. This year is
it is weird already.
Yeah.
Right.
We're just starting in February. Let's see what happens if we can make it through the rest of this year. This country can hold together. I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Okay, I know we want to talk about Gaza and we want to talk about the shakeup in the military brass in China, but I don't think we have time for that today. Maybe we'll shelve that.
Yeah, we'll touch on that. I think we just have to. I mean, I think we owe it to Gaza, and there are important things going on there.
Well, if you want to say a few things about Gaza.
Well, I was just going to say very quickly, there's an organization which I'm sure everybody's heard about called Médecins Sans Frontières. That's the French, and so it's known by the initials MSF. In English, is Doctors Without Borders. It's a very well-known, highly regarded, humanitarian organization, completely apolitical. We just send doctors to places where they're needed, and they sent their doctors to Gaza. But they will not be allowed in starting at the end of this month. The Israelis have declared that. And why? Is because the Israelis demanded, they wanted to know the name of every doctor that was working for them. And they actually tried to kind of work out some kind of deal with the Israelis. But in the end, they said, we just can't do this. And because our people are scared. You have killed, the IDF has killed 1,700 medical personnel in Gaza during the last couple of years. And among them, 15, doctors working for MSF. And the thing is that we believe you did it deliberately. And so we just can't give you information on them because there's just you can't promise you're not going to kill them. That's just that we don't believe you. So for the safety of our own doctors, we're going to have to pull out. And again, that's more misery for the Gazans. And it's just the horror, just the horror. That's just one small example, but these things come out every day. It's just like this is not a war. Sometimes, that's what people like to portray it as. It is a genocide. It's just clearly an effort to kill or to immiserate, to drive these people off the land. That's what it is. And that's just one small example. Another thing, just the other day, I think it was on Saturday, 32 Gazans were killed in strikes, all of them civilians, some of them in an apartment building, a residential apartment building, and then others, a family there, another family in a tent. Supposed to be in a safe area. This is a ceasefire. They're supposed to be in a safe area, and they were killed. 32 6 of them were children. A couple of families were pretty much wiped out. And the Israelis said, well, we had to do this because the Hamas violated the ceasefire. We saw 8 of their people coming out of a tunnel somewhere near Rafah. So, I mean, just the absurdity of this is, how preposterous. So you say, okay, you're going to kill 32 civilians, at least 32. The body count may be higher now, because you saw 8 guys come out of a tunnel. And this is okay. That's a violation of a ceasefire. What you do, the 32 you killed was not. I'm sorry. It's like the same thing in Lebanon. They always claim, oh, we think Hezbollah is violating it, but all the deaths, all the people that are being killed, there it's not daily, but it's like every couple of days somebody kills somebody in Lebanon. But in Gaza, it's daily. It's been a little over 100 days since the ceasefire went to effect, and we have over 500 Gazans killed. It's like 520, just 30 the other day. It's just, again, just to remind you what's happening. This is what's going on now. Finally, they have agreed to open the crossing, the border crossing at Rafah, the one that goes, borders Europe, not Europe, Egypt. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, borders Egypt, and that's supposed to begin today. But they were supposed to do that at the beginning of the ceasefire. It's just one of the many, violations of the ceasefire. They never did it. And finally now it's just like the Gazans desperately need this, because this is the one place where they can send patients that need medical care that cannot be provided within Gaza. And they say they have 20,000, who just have to go to hospitals in Egypt or elsewhere, if they're going to have any chance of surviving. Already, like 1,500 of those have died waiting because the Israelis didn't open the crossing. Now they're just limiting to 150, I believe, a day that they're going to allow to leave Gaza. So many, many more of those people will die, because, again, the Israelis are just going to keep it to a trickle. And they'll probably find excuses to shut it down. And then they'll only allow 50 in, because their logic is they only want Gazans to leave. They always want it to be a net outflow.
It's so horrific. And the amount of gaslighting that's done in this country, in the West, that if you don't support what Israel's doing, you're an anti-Semite somehow, and that we have to fund this genocide, that we are complicit in these
very
atrocities.
Complicit, yeah. Right, because it's just, again, we've created this whole structure in this peace plan. Have you heard one thing about an Israeli violation of a ceasefire? They every day, they kill Gazans with impunity. They fail to make deliveries that were promised, under the ceasefire. And, it's just every day, we can go. There's a long, long list, and you never hear it. Now, it's true that, like, Turkey has complained, and some of the other, Arab states have complained about violations of the ceasefire, but they haven't backed it up with any actions. They're going to be part of these boards, that are ultimately controlled by Donald Trump and his cronies, So, yeah.
I think one of the most shocking things and just horrifying things for me is that the Israeli citizens, the populations that are okay with this. How could you be okay with what you're doing?
Right.
And it makes me also wonder, I know I've told everyone on about the Epstein stuff a lot, but like when this stuff is breaking, are the Israeli citizens, are they horrified about knowing the complicity of their government in the Epstein stuff? Or are they already aware of it, and they're just like, yeah, we're allowed to do this.
Yeah.
We're allowed to control the world via blackmail.
The sense I get is on the right end of the spectrum. Sometimes they boast about it, like Netanyahu himself. He's boasted about the degree of control he has in the U.S. And we have
he's told the other
posting. Yeah,
the Gulf states. He said, like, look, I'm the one that's really in power. It's not. He told them that.
Yeah, and we have him on video saying that way back, like almost more than 20 years ago, telling some settlers that. He said it's just incredible. Like, he thinks it's almost kind of funny how much control. So on the right hand, you do get sometimes open statements and boasts. On the left side, I think you find denial in general. It's just like they're very uncomfortable with that. They say they don't like to talk about it. They just try to deny it, and because they're kind of locked in. Because it shows that those so-called anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, a lot of them are right, and that's something it's part of their kind of identity, is that anti-Semitism is this huge evil, and we must fight it, and so on and so forth. Now, you do get some unusual dissidents like Gideon Levy and some others, but very few. Let's be honest, and they themselves admit it. They say that they're horrified by the lack of concern for Palestinian life, and they said we've had all these marches and protests. but not one, of any significance was actually on against the genocide. They're all about the hostages. And like people like Gideon Levy, a very honorable man, a moral man, has just said, he finds that particularly sickening. He's like, what's happened to this country? It used to be that there was, it was a minority, but there was a real minority that did care about these things and might actually go out and protest about them. That's gone.
Yeah, what a sick country. It's hard to believe that this could even happen. That you think that most people have a conscience, but it seems like
this is not the first time things like this has happened. Let's just put it that way.
Well, at some point, I think it's different,
including everything is different in some ways. It's true. At some point we'll actually talk about, Stefan Bandera and Ukraine. There's some rather, it's horrifying what was done, and especially in Western Ukraine. And in that case, against the Jews, it has to be remembered that they were the victims of some horrible, horrible persecutions and massacres. And especially, probably worst of all, was in Ukraine.
Yeah, well, the thing that's different is that we have the internet. There's no, the people in Israel, they can't deny that they don't know what's going on. When these things that Stepan Bandera did or Hitler did, it's largely shielded from the general public. You just have a few powerful people under control. So it's just a different thing. This is.
Yeah. And then also you do, like I think we pointed out before, it's just you have Israelis themselves, IDF soldiers and settlers, taking selfies and bragging about what they're doing, finding it funny and then getting a lot of support online. That's, again, it's maybe a little similar to, with this murderer who's now the advisor to the defense minister in Ukraine. That's you say, okay, we have the internet, so we know what's going to happen. Unfortunately, we get people who enjoy kind of murder porn. That seems to be part of the consequence of social media these days.
What a crazy, messed up world we live in. Okay, well, let's end it here, I guess, Dad.
Okay.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.